Joachim Bitterlich is the former German ambassador to NATO and former European diplomatic and security advisor to German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. He's now joining us live from Paris. Mr. Bitterlich, welcome to the show. Berlin blames Torres Kohl leak on officer logging via an insecure Singapore hotel line. Many critics argue that Berlin is trying to look for excuses. How is Germany going to get itself out of this mess?
Well, it's a certain mess, you're right. And Berlin has only one choice, let's say, to contain the damage. The damage is existing, and probably what Pistorius, the German defense minister, has told to the press is the right version at the end of the day. But it opened a flank to Russian propaganda, not only against Germany, because against all the Western allies. For the moment concentrated on Germany, because the Russians think the Germans are, let's say, the most reluctant partner in the Western world with regards to support of Ukraine. And therefore they try to, let's say, to put a certain pressure on the Germans, let's say, to feel guilty and to, let's say, to reduce their assistance as asked for, let's say, the extremists in German politics on the left and on the right side. But I think the Germans will stick to the goal to continue the support of the Ukraine in this field. By the way, we have forgotten totally, the whole story has been launched, and therefore the Russians were putting in this field by Macron, by the French president, who has been talking at the beginning of a week without any need and against, let's say, classical French attitudes about ground troops in the Ukraine, and that's refused by the great majority of European and NATO allies.
Talking about allies, Mr. Bitterlich, allies of Germany are very angry with Germany, and they are now giving Germany a tough time. What will be the impact of this leak to the ongoing war, and especially for Ukraine?
I think rapidly forgotten. Rapidly forgotten. The Germans have been presenting their excuses on the story, and they will, together with the allies, with the British or the French, try to forget rapidly the story. What they can't stop is, let's say, the Russian propaganda, and this is normal. It's a sad story, okay, but it's a certain crisis of trust, if you want, but I think a bit exaggerated by the media in the last 2 days.
All right.
And you have the risk of listening third parties, not only the US, but the Chinese too, the Russians too, and the Russians do, let's say, utmost efforts, let's say, to get some news in this field that could help them, let's say, to reinforce their propaganda with regard to the Ukraine and to split, especially Western allies. But I think will not be a success story at the end of the day.
Mr. Bitterlich, moving away from all the propaganda and talking about Russia now, Russia claims German military leak proves Western involvement in Ukraine. There is also speculation that the Kremlin could be privy to other high-profile leaks. Your reaction?
You can never exclude it. What August Hanning has been saying, well, I understand him as the former intelligence chief in Germany, but it's not impossible. There could be other leaks in the Western world, because the Western world is, to some extent, let's say, too open, too transparent. And this opens, let's say, certain, let's say, misinterpretation or wrong interpretation of the attitudes of one or the other. It's true. And you can't avoid it at the end of the day.
Finally, Mr. Bitterlich, we do understand that the British Foreign Secretary is headed to Germany, and the British government is downplaying its involvement in these leaks. What do you think about the British Foreign Secretary dashing to Berlin to actually counter these accusations?
Well, I think it's right that allies talk to each other and discuss it in order to reduce, to contain damages. It's clear. And I understand him. But what the Germans have been telling, it's a matter of facts. It's not, let's say, something invented. It's true that the British have certain forces surplus in the Ukraine in order to protect the embassy and in order to help the Ukrainians in training. It's a matter of truth to some extent. And the same applies probably, in my eyes, to the French. Not to the Germans, who refuse absolutely to be present in Ukraine. And therefore, I think, again, this will be a matter of some days where the Russians are able, let's say, to produce a certain, let's say, crisis of trust. But it's limited, in my eyes. And you will see in 2 or 3 days it will be forgotten if the Russians do not find, let's say, another leak in the Western world.
All right. I've been talking to Ambassador Joachim Bitterlich. Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to us today.
A pleasure as always.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.